Welcome back to Margaritas in Paradise. When you're comparing Pattaya, which is just fantastic because it has everything, to the village life. You know, at some point in time, if you're here and you're in a relationship or something like that, you're going to find somebody and they're going to want you to go home with them, all right? They're going to want you to come back and see where they're from, and they're going to kind of want to showcase you. They're going to, you're going to be the token falang. Person's going to want to show you off and everything else. So they're going to take you back to the village. Okay, that happened to me, and I can't tell you how many times I went back to the village. And I actually enjoy going back to the villages. Anyway, we're going to kind of go over the things that you need to be aware of. What you can expect to make your trip more enjoyable, so you can embrace and adapt to what's going on there compared to what you have here. You know, most of the provinces have a major city, and you can expect 50 to 100,000 inhabitants. A city that probably has a mall, a major big C, a macro, all the car dealerships, your motorbike brands such as Honda and Yamaha and maybe even Suzuki, but they're going to have everything else and modern conveniences that you would expect in these type of villages. Whether it's a hospital, they may have a Bangkok hospital, and then they're going to have several other government hospitals, possibly other private hospitals. They're going to have banks and lawyers and everything you can imagine as far as everyday life, because they need the same things as you need here in Pattaya, but it's probably not on the same scale that we have here. But they do a good job, including schools. You know, there's some areas, they even have golf courses, so and airports. So there's an option there of whether how you're going to get from point A to point B. If say we're using Pattaya as an example, and you're going to go to Udon Thani or Korat, or Chiang Mai or Chiang Rai or someplace like that, are you just going to fly there, which is doable for all those places, and it's only going to take you like an hour to get there, maybe an hour and a half, something like that. Or you can drive, which may take you a day and a half. Those are all options. So those are the things you have to think about. And then once you realize that you're going to the province, where in the province are you going? More than likely you're going to go with somebody. Where are you going to be staying? Okay, are you going to be staying with the family, or are you going to stay at a hotel? You know, those are the type things to kind of work out ahead of time, because you don't want surprises, especially when you get there. Now, for me, I would always recommend, no matter how you get to that province, that once you're there, you secure some type of transportation that's going to stay with you the entire time. So for me, it's personally, you know, I've done everything from, I've arrived in Udon Thani and ended up renting a van that had a driver, and the driver stayed with me the whole time I was up there. And back in the day, that would only cost, let's say, 1,500 baht, maybe $45 a day, something like that. Now, I don't know what it costs today, but that's doable. Now, on the other hand, if you're capable of driving yourself, of course, you'll need an international driver's license, but that's stuff you can look up and everything. But definitely take care of that before you come to Thailand. Get an international driver's license. If you're living in Thailand or here for an extended period of time, get a Thai driver's license. Renting a car, or if you have your own vehicle, okay, you could drive your own vehicle there as well. I definitely recommend having some type of transportation, because the thing that you don't want to feel like once you're in the village is being stuck. Okay, you don't want to feel trapped. You want to know that at some point in time you're going to want to do something. Okay, and you want to have the capability to go out and do the things that you want to do. and you don't want to be stuck or at somebody else's whim about when you can do things. So that's one of those things that I would take seriously and think about before you get into the province. So once you've figured out which province you're in, okay, and where you're going, and I can relate to this, I'll tell you, and I'll use my personal experiences. When I went up to meet my ex's family, Nikki's, we were staying in Udon Thani, and her village was in Tung Phon, which was about 40 minutes away from Udon Thani. And then we were in a smaller village, and some of you guys may even know that where this is at, but the name of it was Nang Saat. The village was only maybe 2 kilometers away from the district. So at least in the district, we had a government hospital. All right, we had a fire department, we had a police station, and we had one Lotus convenience store, and we had one 7-Eleven, I believe it was, and we had a nice little market area where we could get fresh food and things like that. And we had lots of little convenience stores and little mom and pop shops that were around town. We had several small restaurants. They were small open air type restaurants. And then we also had some street food vendors that were always in the same place every day. So, besides going to the daily markets, and, in our village, there were certain days of the week when they had a market. But every village around where we were at had a market as well. Like on Tuesdays, it may be in Banqiang. Or when you're in that situation, you're going to find out that there's certain things that are just obvious that you're going to run into. And one of the big things is the language barrier. English language isn't going to be the norm, and you're going to have to get by on your base, your Thai language knowledge, maybe Google Translate. And every time you do see another Flong, it's going to be like a magnet. You're both going to be drawn to each other just to say hello. That's going to be another thing is socialization. I was so fortunate that I had an Australian guy who lived right next door to me named Peter. And we're still great friends today. But, that's not the case with a lot of people. A lot of people, usually you have neighbors, but most people's neighbors are going to be Thai, and more than likely, they're not going to speak your language. The food of choice while you're in the village is more than likely Isan Thai food, okay? Specifically Isan food, spicy food that maybe have been sitting out for a long period of time. When I first went to Thailand, and I would see a bowl of raw pork just kind of sitting out on a table, and they may or may not put a cloth over it, or sometimes there was these kind of fly screens that they'd put over it, and sometimes there wasn't anything put over it, but it would sit out there all day, and that worried me. It still kind of worries me, but that's the norm here. Now, I've known a lot of people here that have the iron guts, okay, the guys that can eat anything, and they're not affected by what they eat, but that's not me. All right. I want to know, in my head, I want to know what I'm eating. I want to know it's been taken care of the way it's not going to bother my stomach. So with that in mind, you're going to have to be very conscious of the way your food is prepared and what food that you're eating. And things that you're going to find that you're going to eat a lot of probably is pork and chicken, pork steaks, that type of stuff, and fried chicken. There's going to be lots of other food that they eat on a daily basis that is probably delicious, and it's something that you should definitely try. But you have to kind of keep that in mind that your standard KFCs and McDonald's and things like that are probably not going to be around. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a 7-Eleven or Lotus, they may have some type of 7-Eleven type food available in there for you to get that you can throw in a microwave or something. Of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure you give me a big thumbs up, that you're hitting that subscribe button. Hit the little bell next to it for future notifications of videos that are coming out. A big shout out, don't forget Kansas City football, go Chiefs. Rick G, thank you so much for the coffee. Definitely appreciate it, super generous. But things that are going to be different from, let's say, Pattaya, there's going to be things like toilets. When you walk into a toilet, and it to be the, I shouldn't say old-fashioned, but the squat style toilet. It's not going to be your modern sit-down type toilet that you may be used to. That may be the standard. It may be the standard even in homes, that's what they were raised with. And when it's one thing for you to do a number one, okay, but when it comes time to do a number two, then the balancing act kind of steps into play. You know, you drop your trousers and you're squatting down and that type of stuff, and you don't want to make a mess. More than likely, they don't have the spray hose, okay? They may have a bucket of water sitting off the side with a small pan for you to pick that water up and splash it on your backside to clean yourself up. And then you go a step further, and more than likely, there's no tissue to clean yourself with or even dry your hands off. Those are the things that you're going to have to think about. Those are the things that you're probably going to have to, let's say the tissue, for instance, you're going to have to bring with you. Those are things to really think about, because you're not used to coming here and thinking about whether you're going to need to use the toilet or not. But you're definitely going to have to use the toilet. You know, I kind of mentioned it before, you're thinking about where you're going to stay. Now, hopefully, if you're staying in a resort or something like that, that they have a modern style toilet. But what's the bed going to be like? A standard Thai type bed is about the same as sleeping on a tile floor, hard as a rock, okay? And the beds tend to be very hard as well. Now, you want to be able to get a good night's sleep, and if you can sleep on a hard bed, good on you. You won't have any problems. But for me, you know, I can take about a day of it, but that's about it. And I need to have something with me to kind of compensate so I can adapt. If I'm not comfortable, if I'm waking up constantly and rolling around and everything else, probably the next day I'm not going to be the normal cheerful self I am. You know, when I'm traveling around, I bring an air mattress with me, believe it or not. Now, I'm not telling you to be that extreme, but because I travel so much in Thailand, I'm always prepared for that. And the same thing as with a pillow. In Thailand, they use these small blocks type pillows. But for me, that's not the type of pillow I'm used to, so I always bring my own. So look into it ahead of time before you get on the road, and ask your partner, you know, are you going to be sleeping on the floor, or are you going to be sleeping in a bed? You may be sleeping in a room with 10 other people. So think about that, find out ahead of time, and be prepared. Here's another one. You know, unless you're in a big village, or not a big village, unless you're in a big city, if you're out in the village, having a Bolt taxi or a Grab taxi or food delivery, probably not going to happen. And so you have to kind of be aware of where you're at. You know, you're not going to have the normal conveniences that you have when you're in Pattaya. Business hours. Business hours here in Pattaya, when are they? You know, well, in general, business hours here are like 10 o'clock in the morning until like 4 a.m. in the morning. Now, people do get up earlier, don't get me wrong. You can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go do things, whatever you want in Pattaya. But the chance of you finding, let's say, a place to eat and finding an English breakfast or something like that, you may have to wait a little bit later until 8, 9, 10 o'clock before those places open up. Now, when you go to the village, it's a whole different ball game, okay? You're looking at business hours start about 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. And everybody goes to bed when the sun goes down. So let's just call it 8 p.m. Everybody goes to bed at 8 p.m. You kind of have to be used to that. You may find the occasional younger crowd around that stays up and has a beer or something like that. But for the most part, people are working during daylight hours and they go to bed when it gets dark. Are you used to roosters crowing at 4 o'clock in the morning? I'm not, okay? When I lived in the village and my wife wanted to have chickens on the property, I was like, no freaking way. But the problem with that is, in all honesty, I should have let her have them because the neighbors have them, everybody else has them, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, the roosters start crowing. That's just part of it. And in the village, at 6 o'clock in the morning, probably the village headman put some Thai music on the loudspeaker, and that's the way it happens. So if you need to sleep until 10 o'clock in the morning, you may need earplugs. If you're with somebody in the village, whether it's your wife or your girlfriend or your partner, whoever it is, be aware that everybody knows you're with that person. That you are this token phalang. And everybody knows in that immediate area who you are, and anywhere that you go in the immediate area or the village or the markets and that type of stuff, you're going to go with your partner, and they're kind of showing you off. You're a status symbol. If you go out to eat or something like that, more than likely, family matters in the village. So everybody comes over to wherever you're staying at and eats there. But if there's a by chance you go out to the local lake or things like that, you may end up flipping the bill, per se, for everybody that's there. Now, it's not guaranteed that you're going to be paying for everything, but there's a chance that you are. And you pretty much need to be prepared for that. Now, normally, it's not like what we're talking about here in Pattaya, where the bill may cost a lot of money. There, you're talking about everything is very reasonable in price, and more than likely, you're going to be surprised when you may have fed, let's say, 10 people or 15 people, and it only costs 1,000 baht. But have extra money just in case, because you never know who's going to start drinking a bunch, and maybe you will too. When you go to the village, you need to have things to do, because I almost guarantee you're going to encounter boredom. The family likes to stay home. They like to be together. They like to talk about just unbelievable things. I mean, they really talk a lot, and they're going to be talking about you. A lot of times, they're going to want to come up and talk to you, but they just don't know what to say because they don't understand your language. There's going to be times when you're sitting around doing nothing. And that's something where you need to bring things to do, whether you're bringing a book or your computer or your iPad and watching Netflix. Whatever the thing is bring things for yourself to do while you're at the village. I've touched on this on all types of other videos, and this is a real serious concern, especially in the village, and that's mosquitoes. Definitely make sure that you have mosquito repellent with you, possibly the plugins like I've mentioned in other videos. I would say even going and getting the dengue fever vaccination ahead of time prior to going to the village would be definitely warranted. Take the mosquito issue seriously, because they're not treating the area ponds and things like they are here in Pattaya, and especially the tourist areas around Thailand. The government's taking care of the tourists, basically trying to eliminate the possibility of you getting dengue fever. But out in the village, it's a different story, and there's a higher possibility of you getting something like that. So take care of yourself. Just know that ahead of time. Okay, and the very last thing on this video I'm getting back into customs and courtesies, all right? And, you know, when you're in Pattaya or when you're in Phuket or Koh Samui or in the major tourist areas, you have to remember that there's a certain level of customs and courtesies that are probably not taken as serious as they're going to take it in the village. You can expect customs and courtesies to be taken very serious, okay? Things like you pointing at somebody, especially with your feet, or even showing the bottom soles of your feet, and pointing it at maybe a grandparent or your partner's father or something like that, because you're not used to tucking your feet underneath your butt when you're sitting on the ground. Maybe if you're sitting on the ground, you just put your feet out straight out and cross them over. Well, that's not a good thing. So if you're doing that, make sure your feet are pointed at the dog or something like that. Don't point them at other members of the family. You know, things like touching the top of somebody's head. That's not a good thing, okay? Obviously, you'll never ever touch a monk. You know, touching a female's top of her head, that's not a good thing. Personal displays of affection, you know, is not a good thing in the village unless you're planning on marrying somebody. If you're going up there as just boyfriend, girlfriend, and you're walking around holding hands or kissing or things like that in public, things may be looked at differently than, let's say, here in Pattaya, okay, or how you think they should be looked at. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass your partner, okay? Go up and have fun. And just do the things that are right. Do the things that you would do in front of your own mom, okay? And so treat the family in general, especially the elders, the people that are older than, well, I'll tell you what, the people that are older than your partner, treat them with respect. Because nowadays, when I go to the village and meet somebody, there's a good chance that I may be the oldest. The people in the village will treat me with a great deal of respect. But that also means that I need to treat them with the same respect or more. You know, you want to leave feeling and that you did everything right, and you want them to think that you were trying your best to impress them. All right, so obviously, don't raise your voice, don't start yelling, have fun. That's all I have for you. Now, another shout out to someone. Now that is actually the person's login name is someone, and I say you humble me by buying me drinks, and yeah, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it. And then we have Enzo. I appreciate it, brother. All right, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you're giving me that big thumbs up and you're hitting that subscribe button. And that's all I have for you. We'll see you down the road. See you in the next video. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.